Okay, so we will get going and we'll just allow people to come in as we go, if that's okay with everyone. We'll get started. So, good morning, everybody. As Sue said, it's quite early, so we're still adjusting a little bit on this side, but we're very much excited to have Sue joining us today. So, thank you so much to all of you for joining us for our 10th Wellbeing Talk of 2024. October is Women's Health Month, and today we have the wonderful Sue Doughty joining us from Westmeria Counselling Services to speak about the menopause, which is our topic for this month's talk. So just before I hand over to Sue, just a bit of housekeeping. So I'd just like to remind everybody who has joined that we are recording today's session. So please do keep your cameras off as we go. It would also be really helpful if you could stay muted. I will be keeping an eye on it, but just that we don't have any interference noise, that would be great. We will operate a bit of a Q&A towards the end of the session, and the live chat will be monitored by myself and my wonderful welfare team. So if you do have any questions or any comments as we go, please feel free to pop them into the chat. And without further ado, Sue, I will hand over to you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Grace. Lovely to see you again, and welcome to everybody from the EIC and your co-workers. Yeah, I'm not going to monitor the chat because it will confuse the life out of me. So Grace is going to sort that out. I am, as Grace said, the CEO of Westmeria Counselling, and I've been counselling for about 25 years now. Before that, I was a nursing assistant in gynae clinics, so I used to work closely with consultants and understanding a lot more about women's issues. So it's always been a big draw for me. So I'm delighted to be able to talk to you about it today. I think also there's a lot of assumptions about menopause, and a lot of information and education around the whole subject is definitely needed. I think sometimes one assumes that because you're a woman that you know about it, and I would say that's not the case. So I'm going to give an overview of what I'm going to cover today. There'll be time, as Grace said, for questions, and you're going to pop them into the chat. I am happy to sort of do this. If there's a burning question, then I can chat to you, but I think Grace is keen for me to keep that to the end. So whilst it's a little bit more interactive, what I didn't want it to be was like when you go to the doctor about this sort of thing, and they kind of, you're generally told what your options are, and there's no room to discuss it. So I'm really happy to take questions at the end. And again, ask away. I'm not a doctor, but I'm happy to share any insights and information that I do have. At the end of the presentation today, I will be sending the stuff over to Grace. So if you want a copy of the slides, you're really welcome to have them. So I'm going to look in at the facts around menopause, the symptoms. There's a thing called the green scale. So if you go to the doctor, sometimes you may be asked to sort of complete this, and it gives, you can do it for yourself as well. So it gives you an all-round idea of like, oh, am I going through the menopause? Is this the time? So it kind of gives you a few answers for yourself as well, rather than kind of just getting misinformation, which I think is really common. The effect on yourself, the effect on your relationships. I do a lot of couples work, so I see that quite clearly. The medication route, the holistic and nutrition route, the misconceptions around it, kind of how it affects your lifestyle, and what you can do to change certain things about your lifestyle so that it helps you to manage the menopause in a better way, and also friends and family that are going through that around you. A little bit about the male menopause, and importantly for, I guess, for a lot of you here, is how to help in the workplace. So menopause, is it madness? Is it menopause? Is it depression? Is it anxiety? They're one of the same, you know. So I get a lot of people come in and say, oh, my doctor sent me because I'm depressed, or I'm really anxious. Anxiety comes as we get older, and alongside the menopause, it just seems to be exacerbated. There's about 13 million women going through the menopause. I mean, are you one of them, or is someone you're living with going through that? How does it affect them or you? I mean, there's a lot of coverage in the media about menopause. Do you really understand what the effects are, what the symptoms are, and what support is out there? And to be honest, I'm not sure there's a huge amount of support. So doing this workshop and giving you more information, and you then going to find out more information, really gives you an insight and helps other people. So no slides are going to be shared at this because I like you to keep an eye on what we're doing, and it gives me an idea to see how you're getting on. So it's not about just women going through the menopause, it's far reaching. The effect is on family and friends and work colleagues. So what happens? What happens in the menopause? This magical word that everybody says, oh, we need to be careful, mum, or mum's going through the menopause, or someone at work's going through the menopause. So it's good to educate yourself and to what exactly it is and how to look into it a bit more. So all women experience the menopause. It's a natural biological process faced by all women, and it gives you the permanent end to the menses, the periods. So periods are a nuisance coming, they're a nuisance while they're here, and they're a nuisance going. So yeah, it's one big pain in the butt, to be perfectly honest. So the average age is around 51. This kind of ebbs and flows a little bit, but it can occur much earlier or later. Before 45, it's classed as an early menopause, and before 40 is a premature menopause. So the facts are that after 1 year without menstruation, a woman is said to have gone through the menopause. So the natural menopause is when the ovaries stop producing estrogen and progesterone. Now, estrogen is female hormone, if you like, and progesterone is seen more as a male hormone. But it can also occur when the chemotherapy or radiotherapy, if you've had any cancer treatment, when the ovaries have been removed, such like a hysterectomy. So the ovaries naturally fail to produce estrogen and progesterone when you have fewer egg cells. These are present from birth. Not a lot of people know that, and actually the eggs that you have come from your mum, so you're actually born with eggs from her, which is a crazy fact. So they're present before birth, they have a reduced number already at birth, and the gradual reduction from puberty shows a rapid decline from, say, 40 onwards. In actual fact, they say it like the London fertility clinics. I went a few years ago, went with a colleague of mine. She was having fertility treatment, and she was in her 30s, and I think I was nearly 40 when I was going up to sort of support her with that. And there's big things everywhere saying, oh, donate your eggs. And I thought, oh, that's a really nice thing to do. I had my own children and decided that would be a nice thing to do. I was too old. So they say from 36, they don't even ask you to do that because there's just no point. So that made me feel a lot older than 40, I might tell you, at that time. So the symptoms. This is a bit I think everybody's most interested in. Some people want to put their symptoms down to the menopause, while others don't want the label. I think it's a tricky one to determine, really. I've seen a lot of ladies over the years who was confused as to whether they have anxiety or depression, overwhelming stress, or symptoms of menopause. These ladies are often sent to the doctor, so they'll come for counselling and say, well, the doctor sent me. There's a couple of reasons for that. It's determining whether it's anxiety, whether it's menopause, it's whether the doctor particularly wants to do that, or they don't really know what to do with the woman. And I think that's probably moreover. So if there are any doctors out there, I apologise for that. That is a fact. So it might be their doctor, it might be their partner who doesn't understand the symptoms. The truth is we can't say 100%. And actually, does that really matter? Because menopausal symptoms affect a huge percentage. Probably about 70% of us going through the menopause will have symptoms of some sort. And this obviously is due to the change in hormone levels, mostly the estrogen. However, other lifestyle and medication can influence the symptoms. Coming through retirement, change in family circumstances, grandchildren, tiredness. Don't forget, we're looking around 50. There's a lot of big changes within what we're doing. Are we, if it's later sort of into the 50s, a lot of people are doing early retirement now. So it's like, oh, is this because I'm feeling older, or is this due to the menopause? And it's kind of just trying to ascertain. So the symptoms are wide and varied and include hot flushes and night sweats. Now, these are classic menopausal symptoms and affect between 60 and 85% of women. These are called vasomotor symptoms and vary greatly in their severity. These are said to last around 2 years, but with everybody being unique, this also varies. The flushes themselves can last between 3 and 5 minutes. So it's to do with the temperature controlling part of the brain, and it can fall into a time pattern. Sometimes you don't notice them, but other times you absolutely do. Sometimes it will be when you're more relaxed, so sometimes sitting down after your meal, or other times it will come out of nowhere and completely envelop you. One of the times when I was going through my own menopause and I was in Morocco, so we were having a dinner, and then it would be like 9 o'clock every night, and all of a sudden I could feel it coming over me. And then I thought, oh, because I'm in a hot country, but I'd have to step outside. I mean, the people that I was with thought it was absolutely hilarious, but it was a little bit embarrassing. So it's like, how do you manage that? Because that is embarrassing. What do you do if you get that at work? You get that overwhelming feeling, and you think, oh my God, what do I do about it? So it can be dependent also on what you eat and drink, the time of the day, moving between temperatures, like so coming from inside to outside. So when the brain tells you you're overheating, your body tries to cool itself down. So there's a variety of different chemical reactions that cause the blood vessels in the skin to open up. And that gives the sensation of that rush of heat, and the sweat glands release sweat to dissipate that heat. So you can see how like that, the body is really clever. It's telling you what you need to do and how it's going to do it. And if you ignore it, it's going to do it anyway. Okay. The other things that you've got in the symptoms are palpitations. Now, if you're not aware of that, that can be pretty scary. So that's also associated with the vasomotor symptoms. Things that can make that worse are like caffeine and alcohol, sadly. This worsens, so maybe thinking about switching to decaffeinated drink, or drink anything with caffeine, Coke or coffee, and that in moderation. I mean, a lot of people suffer with caffeine of a night anyway, so they won't drink it past a certain time. The other thing that obviously is very closely related to that then is insomnia. This is a real common symptom of menopause and really difficult to manage. So this like sleeplessness and disturbed sleep could either be partly due to the night sweats. So taking control of this could aid more sort of restful sleep. So again, when you're going to bed, it's like cotton stuff around you, and just managing, seeing how you're coping with that. On the continent, they have two different, if you're sleeping with somebody, they have two different duvets. So you know, where people switch over and then they've kind of, everybody's hot the duvet, and then you're really hot and you want it back. So if you've got your own, you can monitor that a little bit more carefully. So maybe single duvets. Aching joints. So whilst this is reported, there's no concrete correlation between this and the menopause. But again, people have the neck, the wrists and the shoulders, and that is part of the menopause, again, not reported. One of the most common effects of menopause are headaches. And again, this could be a number of things, and partly down to the lack of sleep, the tiredness around it, and fatigue. The thing that people don't like to talk about are sexual problems. This can be caused by vaginal dryness, which again is down to low estrogen levels and can make intercourse quite painful. I see a lot of women that don't address these symptoms because of the embarrassment, and this in turn could cause problems in the relationship, with men not understanding because it's not talked about. It kind of becomes a cycle. So any advice on that is communication is key, as in all couples therapy or in general, communication is a major part of things. So once you've gone through the initial side of the menopause, the later symptoms can be caused due to the estrogen deficiency. So this deficiency can have problems with your bladder and your vagina. They cause more frequency in passing urine, sometimes discomfort in passing urine. A lot of people note a lot more UTIs, urinary tract infections, urine leakage. I mean, you've seen those awful TV adverts where they're releasing their pee. I mean, it's pretty gross, isn't it? But it's kind of that is a fact. And it's either because you've had children and your pelvic floor isn't good, but even with menopause, there's not a lot you can do about your pelvic floor because it is about the lack of estrogen that's causing that. And again, that's embarrassing. So do you tell your doctor? How do you manage that? How do you keep clean, keep yourself feeling okay? Hair thinning is another one. This happens to both men and women alike. And it could just be down to our aging process. So you've got the vaginal dryness, the discomfort, burning and itching. This is not always spoken about, itching down below, but also the rest of your skin. Again, there's lots of moisturizers on the market that can help. Non-hormonal is important, so don't add any more hormones into what you've already got. I hope everybody's okay with that. I do speak quite quickly because I've got quite a lot to get through, but if you need me to stop, please feel free. So there's a thing called the green scale. So it's the green climatic scale, and it produces and provides a brief measure of menopause symptoms. So it can be used to assess changing in different systems before and after the menopause treatment. Now, you can do that with your doctor, but you can do it for yourself. You can find it online, and it just gives you a little bit of interest around it. So the three main areas are psychological. So you've got that with your mood swings, your irritability, again, not understanding why you're feeling the way that you do. The physical, which is the palpitations, the insomnia, joint aches, headaches, night sweats, hot flushes, and the vasomotor, as I said earlier on, which is the hot flushes and the sweats. So the severity of the problem is scored like 0 for none, 1 for mild, 2 for moderate, and 3 to severe. So they'll look at how your heart is beating. Is it quickly and strongly? And you answer 1 to 3. A lack of feeling tense or nervous. This is quite common, actually. Like I said to you earlier, people come to me with anxiety. So is that about anxiety? Is this to do with the menopause? It could be, it might not be, but going through this scale will give you a little bit more, because if you're coming out with sort of moderate to severe in most of the things, then generally that's going to be menopause. Difficulty in sleeping, excitable, overexciting, attacks of panic, difficulty in concentrating, feeling tired or lacking in energy. I'm aware I'm doing this at 8:30 in the morning, so you're probably, whether you've got menopause or not, ticking some of these boxes. Feeling unhappy or depressed. Crying spells. That's quite common, actually. People just getting really emotional and not understanding and crying for no apparent reason. Irritability. Again, that comes with premenstrual and postmenstrual and menopause. So you've got a little bit, and it's all attached to it. Again, the estrogen. Feeling dizzy or faint. Pressure or tightness in the head or your body. So we look at like what's going on here, like we're talking about aching joints. Is it that you're getting irritable and upset, so you're tensing up, or is it something that's a little bit more than that? Parts of your body feeling numb or tingly, your headaches, muscle or joint pain, loss of feelings in hands and feet. And again, that would be like tingling, or is it like the Raynaud's? What is it? So again, if this is just picking up the picture as to what that might look like. The hot flushes, sweating at night, and loss of interest in sex. So that's a big catalogue of stuff, and we're going through that. So this is difficult. So if we're not going through it, someone we know, your mum, your sister, your aunt, your nan, is going through this. So it's about us educating ourselves, looking at what that looks like, and perhaps feeling a little bit sorry for them sometimes. Some people sail through it, but other people definitely don't. So how does it affect us? Well, if you're going through that, I'm guessing your self-esteem's not great. So low self-esteem, anxiety, depression, stress, change of shape. Your body definitely changes shape as you go through the menopause, which isn't kind. Lack of energy, feeling unwomanly, and feeling out of control. Now, when I used to work in the gynae clinics, a lot of the male consultants were really, really good with this, but they said it was because you're not needed anymore to procreate. So the change in your shape, the change in and how you are is because you don't really then become attractive to the other side of things, which is a little bit sad to hear, but you understand when you're young, you're preening, you're looking for a partner, you're going to have a family. When that's not there anymore, there's no need for you to look good. I would say keep going, you look good and do it for you. So the effect on relationships. This is a really common presentation in counselling, whether that's I'm seeing a couple or it's someone on their own saying that things aren't going well. So I try to work with couples to be more honest with each other about how they're both feeling, because don't forget the man is kind of suffering the effects of it, or your partner, male or female. Often, as I said, it's embarrassing for the woman to talk about, and therefore they don't communicate. Each party becomes a little bit more defensive. So the partner doesn't feel very sexy, so she doesn't want to be having sex or looking at that. And then the other partner thinks it's because of them. So one couple I saw said the man put everything down to her menopause and wouldn't take any responsibility for the breakdown in the relationship. And as much as we tried to communicate her feelings, he wouldn't listen. So not everything going wrong with the relationship is a menopause thing. So especially as we're getting older, sometimes sex life dwindles anyway. And this can be for a number of reasons during the menopause: vaginal dryness, not feeling very sexy, putting on weight, and tiredness, to name a few. However, I've seen people that has been completely the other way and sex has gone through the roof and they can't get enough of it. So, you know, you can bag for which one you like, okay? So, however, even if it starts with the menopause, it doesn't have to end because of it. Working through it together, making it fun, being open will help tremendously. So just like maybe getting a few books around, showing the slides that I'm going to send later on, just giving more education, understanding it for yourself if you're a woman, but as a guy, understanding the effects it could have. And like I say, it's not set in stone. We're all unique. It could be down to the menopause. It may not. So it's down to you to understand that. So I want to talk a little bit about medication now. So depending on the severity of the symptoms of HRT can be really beneficial. I know myself, my doctor advised that if I could just get through the symptoms without too much discomfort to do just that, because if you have HRT, you'll go through the menopause again when the HRT is finished. So they always say have a break every couple of years to assess whether it's still needed. So what is HRT? You know, it's brandished around, oh, she's on HRT, I'm going to take that. But what absolutely is it? So it replaces the estrogen that your ovaries no longer make, and sometimes some contain some progesterone hormone too. And combining the two reduces the risk of endometrial cancer. If you've had a hysterectomy, you wouldn't need the progesterone because you have no womb. HRT also gives a reduced risk of osteoporosis. There's many ways of administering HRT. There are patches, there are tablets, topical gel, sprays and implants, which you can get every 6 to 8 months. I used to do that within the gynae clinic. It used to look pretty horrific, but actually from a female point of view, it's just a slight cut and they put the implant under the skin and that lasts you for 6 to 8 months. So alternative sort of holistic approach and nutrition. I mean, from my point of view, whatever the symptoms are, we should be looking holistically at the person. So wherever the symptoms are originating from, the discomfort has to be looked at. I think there's a lot of misleading information around this. So there are many natural alternative homeopathic remedies. The top ones are sepia, lachesis, amylinum nitrosum, that's a mouthful, ignatia, sabrina, and calcarea carb. Now, I would say it's best to seek help from a homeopath to sort of tailor that individually, because again, they'll look at all the symptoms. So you may not need something for itchy skin, or you may need it more for hot sweats. So they'll be able to tailor their approach to that. There's lots of supplements if you don't want to go down the homeopathic route. So black cohosh is one of the ones that's most used out there. St John's wort and red clover. So, however, naturally doesn't always mean effective or safe. So more scientific studies are needed to confirm their safety. So again, make sure you're speaking to a GP, a pharmacist, or a homeopath before you take those. I went to Holland and Barrett earlier, and when I was looking through to this, and she was saying, giving me all the information, but she wasn't trained. So be mindful about who you're talking to, and just gather all the information and think, right, what's right for me? What path do I go down? And if you go down the homeopathic route and it doesn't start, maybe you can go to the medical route, and vice versa. If the symptoms are really getting out of control, maybe try some of the HRT and then give it a break. Again, really think about you as a person. I really feel nutrition is so important here. And with everything in life, eating a balanced diet full of rich in fruit and veg, high fibre, oily fish is really important when we're going through the menopause. So include some items of calcium. Vitamins such as vitamin D are important for the bone health. Like I say, with osteoporosis, that's really important to get your calcium. And again, looking into that, I'm dairy intolerant, so I can't have a lot of dairy stuff. So it's a lot of calcium in that. So it's finding your alternative. Again, look at yourself. I can't say it highly enough. You are unique. Healthy and balanced diet is just as important for your mental health, well-being as your physical health. The fact is, you're nurturing yourself and making yourself a priority. So automatically you're going to feel better if you're doing something just for you. Excuse me. So we come to lifestyle. What can be changed during your menopause to make your life a bit more bearable? What slight changes could be made to improve your mood? Could you become a little bit more physically active? Try to avoid sitting down for long periods of time. Weight training is actually really good for bone strength. And I don't mean you're going to be the next Mrs. whatever, but it's strengthening all your muscles. So even if you're on a bike, if you've got a couple of small weights while you're doing that, or you're walking and you've got a couple of small weights, you see that quite a lot. I think speaking to a PT for an assessment and getting the right balance for you is so important. It's no good planning things you don't enjoy just because you think they're good for you, because you just won't do it. I had an assessment myself a few years ago, and I said, oh, I'm going to do a load of running. He said, why is that? Do you like running? I went, no, I can't stand it, but it's really good for you and it makes you lose weight and it's all round good. He said, well, you'll never do it, Sue. And it's absolutely right. So what's right for you? Is it just walking with a friend? Like I say, maybe having some weights with you. And it doesn't have to be hand weights. You can find something that's a little bit heavy, carrying a couple of bags. Is it going to an exercise class where there's a lot of people, like-minded people perhaps, that you can kind of share that with? Yoga is brilliant because you've got your balance and you've got your weights alongside that as well. So I've talked a lot and quickly about the menopause. What about the male menopause? This is sometimes called the andropause. It's widely used in the media, but it's not really a medical term and it can be a little bit misleading. So it's true to say that men in their late 40s and early 50s can develop symptoms similar to the menopause. So again, similar to us, like loss of depression. Then you've got the loss of libido, potentially, erectile dysfunction, mood swings, irritability, and lack of energy. The lack of muscle mass is quite hard for people, men particularly. Reducing ability to exercise, the fat redistribution, like often men will get a larger belly or their man boobs, their moobs. And that I've seen a lot of guys with that, and they really struggle with that. Again, exercise around that, doing a little bit of weight training, that can only help. Poor concentration and memory, insomnia as well, just to name a few. So it's important to look at the reasons behind it. For example, erectile dysfunction, low libido could be stress related. And we're looking at that sort of age group again, where we're getting a little bit older. We're kind of thinking the stress of work, you're dealing with other things as well. So the male hormone, which is testosterone, depletes, but only at a steady rate. So this isn't something that goes like more for us women sort of 40 plus, it starts to have a sharp decline. It's about 1% a year coming from age 40 to 30 to 40. So the testosterone deficiency, which is called hypogonadism, can develop in later life and has some of these symptoms, but in most cases, nothing to do with the hormones. It's not common. And it's often attributed with overweight or perhaps diabetic men as well. So you're all working with people. How do we help people in the workplace? I think, as I've tried to say throughout the presentation, it's really important to be open and honest, and to be educating yourself a little more about what the menopause is. As we have today, you'll be in a better position to be understanding with someone going through it if you understand it a little bit more for yourself. So don't assume because an employer is a woman, she'll understand all about it. That just isn't the case. We have clinical forums here at Westmeria where we raise awareness and share our thoughts, insights and knowledge around this to be able to help others. Is that something you could do? Maybe a little coffee morning, or a few of you get together and say, oh, do you fancy a chat around that? And what we do at our sort of little forums is we will read a little something and bring it. So it's people that have gone through it, people that we've seen that were going through it and think, oh, I wasn't aware of that. That's been really helpful, because, you know, we look at the madness, and if some people think they are going a little bit mad about it, but it's not. It's down to that. The cost of employee sickness has increased. I've just done a survey the last couple of days. It's increased by £30 billion since 2018, and now stands at £103 billion through lost revenue. That's huge. This is mainly due to the country's escalating long-term health issues, and according to the Institute of Public Policy Research. But I think that's because, is this a long-term health issue? Yeah, it is. Of course it is. So how do we manage it? ACAS suggests that as employers, we should have steps, procedures and support in place to help staff affected by the menopause. So have regular communication. Providing that listening ear might resolve things before things get out of hand. Because if you ignore it, people think, well, I'm just going to go off sick. You don't care, so I'm suffering. Be aware of how the menopause relates to the law. So whilst it's not a specific protected characteristic under the Equality Act, if an employee is put at a disadvantage and treated less favourably because of their menopause symptoms, it could be classed as discrimination. And the Health and Safety at Work Act says an employer must, where reasonably practical, ensure everyone's health and safety and welfare at work. And that, you know, we're all women. We're all women and have partners or mums or sisters, so we understand what's going on. So it's good to talk about it. Share, talk and explore. It isn't madness, it's the menopause. Some of the unhelpful phrases are, lucky you, no more periods. You should be able to deal with it. You're a woman. It isn't something you should make a fuss about. It's just something that women should put up with. Men go bald. What have you got to complain about? Do you think you might have dementia? Or women have it? So I hope that that's been beneficial and given you a little insight as to what the menopause is all about. I'm really happy to take some questions. Grace, I think you've managed the chat, or some of your colleagues have. Anything you think I can offer, please feel free.
Thank you so much, Sue. I'm hoping it's working okay. Unfortunately, my Teams appears to be uh, a little bit blurry on the side of what you can see. So hopefully you can see me now. Sue, that was absolutely incredible. I've been writing notes as we've been speaking, and I've taken so much away from this session. So thank you so much. So much information there, so much detail given too, and a lot of comments in the chat as we move through the session. So a couple of questions, but also just thanks to everybody who chose to share their experience or share their own perspective of what they've gone through, especially around sort of the doctor saga around going to the GP and having those conversations.
Yeah.
So just in regards to some of the comments here, I'm not sure whether you'd seen them, but people have
No.
experienced very different you know, processes when they've gone to their GP, and often there we see and we very much hear on our side that the GP turn away exactly as you mentioned, you know, and they sort of say, oh, it's probably depression or it's probably anxiety. But a fantastic tip here, ask your surgery if they have a menopause specialist. So a lot do now, or they can
Okay.
refer you to one in a local service, and that tends to give a much smoother transition and journey into support and treatment available, and a lot more understanding and empathy there too. There was a question. So, is there anything that can help the kind of symptoms around thin and itchy skin in your experience? Is there anything that you could suggest?
It's more about there's loads of moisturizers on the market. Like I said in the thing, don't something with no hormone in it. Again, maybe somewhere if you go into like, I mean, I'm really homeopaths are brilliant, so they will give you a lot of information. So reading up online, I would go for that. But again, speaking to people that have gone through it, that have getting ideas of what they've had. I didn't use it myself, but you can get, there's plenty out there, but make sure it's non-hormonal, the moisturizer, and that will generally help. And maybe some Piriton or something like that.
Okay. And do you happen to know, Sue, what causes the itchy skin? Is it just kind of part of the process, or is there anything in particular?
It's the lack of estrogen, so it's kind of it's kind of almost like seeing things sort of not shriveling up, but sort of reducing. So like your skin is almost like retreat. I would say it's like retreating into itself, but it's a really uncomfortable and not known very well as well.
Yeah. Okay. And another question. So there's lots of rumours that long-term HRT use can cause longer-term health issues. So we'll all be, I'm sure, very familiar with the kind of media spotlight on HRT and
Yeah,
its links to cancer. Where do you stand with
yeah.
this? Do you believe that's true, or?
Um, Yeah, I kind of do. I do look at that, but then you've got the other side of things, which is the bone health. So osteoporosis is like that really protects your bones against that. So it's kind of like what's more important to you? And yeah, I totally agree with that. I would personally, I do the homeopathic route because that's it's more natural for me, but sometimes it just doesn't work. So you've really got to weigh up what's good for you. That's why I was saying to you, like look at the medication side of things, look at the sort of alternative side of things. I can't stress enough with the diet and exercise, and I know it's a bit boring because we say, oh yeah, I've got to lose a bit of weight, I've got to do this, but it's the nutrition side of things. And I think, like I said, it's like the nurturing thing about what I'm putting in my body, what I'm doing to help myself. So I think if you can go down the natural route, give that a go. If they're overwhelming, you need to weigh up quality of life as well.
Absolutely. And I think what you've just touched on there, everyone will experience differences in symptoms and will need that
Yeah,
tailored plan to themselves. Medication
yeah.
and kind of the medical route, pharmaceutical route will very much be appropriate for some and not so much for others. But
Yeah.
that diet, exercise, nutrition is so important. I've had a
And
really
also
good.
it depends on your job as well, because if you're in a really stressful job, you can't afford to take some time, you can't afford to have a later start. You know, if you're really tired, some people are like, well, tell you what, why don't you come in half an hour earlier, have a less of lunch? So as employers, if we need to look at that a bit, because it's exhausting. You know, if you've been awake half the night, how can you concentrate? So it's like, how do we manage that? How can we help people to do that? But if you're in a job that's unforgiving, none of ours are like that, I'm sure. But if you are, you know, you're working in a bank, you're a trader, you've got time limits. There's no way you can do that. So you may need the medical route more in that respect.
Absolutely. And is there a best therapy approach when struggling with menopause symptoms? So CBT, or is there kind of an approach or a journey that you'd suggest?
Say more, it's about listening to the person. So CBT, not particularly. Yes, you can give people things to do, but it's being heard, because people aren't heard and they're struggling, they're sad, they're upset, they're thinking they're causing pain to their loved ones, which sometimes they are, and they can't help it. So it's about listening, it's about providing that relationship.
Yeah. And having that time as well, and the compassion there to
Yeah.
actually sit and understand. And we've had a question here around
Sorry.
sort of, oh, that's okay, you're okay. Um, so we've had a question around sort of the symptoms of menopause. Can these continue for an extended period of time?
Yeah, sadly, yes.
Yeah,
But once the menopause is through, and they say 2 years, but it can be a lot longer,
yeah.
then then they should go. Then they should go. You may be left with more of the bladder stuff, to be honest, but the hot flushes, they definitely go. There is hope.
It's really positive. And I think this is why this awareness is so important, because as colleagues and as family members and friends, it's something that if we're educated in and we have the awareness of, we can support in that sense. So we've had another one. So what can we say to our loved one if they're struggling to talk about it? And how can we open up that conversation about supporting them through the menopause?
It's tricky, because I've got friends recently who've just split up, and he came to me and he went, "It's the menopause. She's not thinking straight. This and that." And I said, "She's thinking straight. It's fine. This is a different matter." So it's like, what is it that's causing it? But I think the fact that you're looking into it, if someone comes up to someone and says, "Look, I can see you're struggling. What can I do?" That may spark more of a conversation, and maybe getting the person or the woman who's going through it to open up a little bit, because it can be confusing and it can be upsetting. Well, it is very upsetting. And there's an assumption nobody understands what I'm going through. Well, if you're not helping them to understand it, how will they know? So it can come from both sides. So you're asking about how can we support someone, is opening up the conversation, opening the communication lines, and then the person that's going through it, perhaps giving some information, have a few books lying around, some interest, some of the slides that I'm going to send later on, perhaps people getting to know what that is, because otherwise you're constantly apologising, and it's like, oh, it's only because she's doing that. Well, no, there's a reason for it. I'm not miserable. I'm not, it's not because it's not you, it's not me, it's the menopause.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think what you've just touched on there as well, it's good to come from both sides. It can be quite an uncomfortable topic, at least from the
Yeah,
experience that I've had and
absolutely.
from the conversations that I've had. I know you've touched on it already, but actually bringing your full self to that conversation, especially if you are experiencing those symptoms, someone is showing concern, that can be a really good learning point, can't it,
Yeah,
between both people there.
yeah,
We've just had a couple of comments within the chat around what people are experiencing as they're going through it. So sort of mood swings and how it actually has that ripple effect and impacts the full family or the full workplace. But
yeah,
actually, again, having that awareness and being able to kind of you know explain, if we dare say that, but give that
absolutely.
context.
I mean, as a counsellor, I'm obviously talking is a big thing for me, but did I do that always personally? Probably not. So it's like opening up sort of lines of communication. Communication is key. If you don't tell someone how you feel with anything in life, it's not going to help. But something around this where you don't really know about it yourself, it's how can you explain it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that I'd like to mention here, and I know, so you've mentioned too around sort of the workshops and everything that you offer, but it can be a difficult conversation to start, especially within the workplace, which is where we often see challenges arise. By all
Yeah,
means, we do definitely see the relationship side and the the personal relationships there. But it can be really helpful if there is a bit of an initiative here to open that conversation within a safe space. So it's actually
Yeah,
something that we offer at the EIC as well. So we offer a
amazing.
an awareness session, and we can do that virtually or we can do that in person too, where we really do just open that conversation. We work with the workplace colleagues, employers, people
Yeah,
all within the organisation to really provide that sense of support and understanding and just to open that conversation up. So
yeah.
if anyone is interested in that, please do reach out. Just a couple more comments within the chat. And thank you so much for your engagement, everybody. It's been amazing this morning to see so much come through. So you mentioned that HRT delays going through the menopause. If it just delays it, why do people choose to take it? Just in
Because the
relation to,
symptoms are the
yeah,
symptoms are unbearable. It doesn't delay the menopause per se, but you won't sort of take it and then 2 years later you won't have any symptoms. You will still get them, but hopefully they will be reduced by that time. So it's not delaying it that you'll kind of get 2 years grace and then you'll go through it, but it will attempt, and there are health benefits. I know that it is scary, but you've got to weigh up it's a personal choice, what's good for you.
absolutely. And so just one more question for me. I hope that's okay, and then we will
Of
let you
course.
go. So just, as colleagues and as family members or friends or people just that we're passing, is there, I know we've spoken a little bit around the sort of approach to those conversations, but is there anything wrong that we can say? Because I often find myself, and I'm sure a lot of us do, thinking, I really don't want to say the wrong thing here. Um, is there anything that you could give us some pointers on there?
I just perhaps would say, are you okay? It seems like you're really struggling. Is there anything I can do? Rather than saying, oh, well, it's because you've got the menopause. I will excuse you, because you're treating someone like an entity then and not a person. It's like you seem, like I see a lot of things coming through about the brain fog. That's horrendous, because you think you're losing your mind, you think you're losing your memory. So it's like, what was that? Is that an age thing? Is that a menopause thing? There's definitely a brain fog that comes alongside it. So it's being patient as well. We're human, we're not always going to do that. But if the majority of the time we can understand it and think, oh, it's possibly because of that, but don't make assumptions. Don't think, it's not something that or you can't really complain. It's just a natural thing. Well, it's still rubbish and we don't want to go through it. We have to, but it's
Yeah.
not nice. So it's just being as understanding and open, really.
Yeah. And I think also understanding it's a completely natural process. We often,
Absolutely.
I think there often seems to be the perspective that, and I know you've touched on it already and very much a myth here, but that kind of once you're in the menopause, that's your next phase of life and you're stuck with it. But actually
Yeah.
understanding that it's a journey that starts much, much sooner than we realize and that actually, carries us through. And it's more of a transition versus a quick change and then it's very different.
And it's kind of embracing it a bit and seeing it as a bit of a challenge. Yes, I'm going to do that, but I'm going to get through it. I'm going to enlist help if I can. And if it's not from my family, it'd be from my fellow girlfriends that understand me and have perhaps been through it. You don't want to get that unique club, if you like, but someone that understands more than others, gravitate towards that. But own it as your own experience and go for it. And it's just like, we can't do anything about it, so let's make the best of it we can.
Absolutely. And you know what? Just on that, for those who maybe don't feel that they have a really kind of supportive network around them in person, I cannot recommend Facebook groups and, getting online and joining those online forums to really get
Yeah,
that sense of connection. I personally, not for the menopause as yet, but a huge information source for me is really tapping into those groups that are available. Typically on Facebook is where I've seen them, but I do know that they exist on Instagram and on various other social medias. And just that sense of community that you get. And if you're struggling, you can put that
absolutely.
message in. So hugely massive advocate for those support groups there, especially if you are feeling alone and isolated as you experience the menopause or as you experience supporting someone who's going through it. That can be a really good insight tool there. We've had,
And therapy, of course.
oh, of course,
So,
absolutely.
it's like, if you haven't got anyone and you do feel completely isolated, perhaps get some therapy around it.
Absolutely. And it's something that we can also help with at the EIC. So if you are coming away from this thinking, actually, I could do with a bit more support here, please reach out, because we have fantastic resources, dare I say, but like Sue and our specialists in the area that we can really help to provide that space where you can allocate time for you to work through what you're experiencing. What we've seen in the chat, I mean, I'm over the moon. It's been fantastic, and just overwhelming messages of support for people that are going through it, but also that are supporting others that are going through it, and just some really brilliant resources here too. So please do have a look through the chat. We've got My Possible Self, which is an app which is not just menopause related, but actually anything mental health support related. We've had Hen Picked mentioned in there, the Bladder Care Handbook by We Are Jude, which is another one that people have found
Yeah,
really supportive.
yeah,
Menopausematters.co.uk,
they're
fantastic
good.
resource, one that I've seen quite a lot on here as well, or taken a lot from, and just everyone sharing their experiences. So thank you so much. It's been amazing. So I'm just going to share our final slide, if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah, of course.
Fantastic. So just before we go, I would like to extend a massive thank you to everyone who has joined us today, and a very special thanks to everyone who has shared their experiences. It's been a fantastic conversation, and it's been really lovely to see so much collective sharing of that there, and
Yeah,
have that engagement.
absolutely.
It really does bring it home. So you've been amazing. Thank you so much
Thank you
for
for
all of
having
the
me, and I
knowledge.
hope that,
It really has
oh,
been fantastic. So thank you. It's been brilliant. And we've got lots of thanks and lots of this has been brilliant. Your amazing comments coming into the chat now. I'm sure you'll be able to see them popping up. But
yeah,
it's been so
fantastic. Thank you.
informative. I really do hope that everyone's been able to take something away from today. And if you'd like to continue this conversation, or if you would like to book in an awareness session for your team, or if you'd like to have that conversation with us, please do reach out to us. We've got our support email, support@electricalcharity.org, and we also have our helpline that operates 9 till 5, that you should all have, and I'm sure will be popped in the chat in just a moment for you all. So thank you so much. Such a pleasure to see
Pleasure.
you.
Thank you for
Thanks
having
for
me.
making it early for us, and
No,
please do
pleasure.
pop over any feedback or any comments at all as we finish. But thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Really looking forward
Good
to
luck,
hopefully
everyone.
seeing you all next month for our November talk. Where is this year going? Can't believe it. My gosh. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day,
Take
everyone. See you
care.
later.
Bye bye.
Bye.